Spoiler warning. Consume at your own risk. Episode 6 of Voltron opens up right when Lance is about to get out of the healing pod he was put in at the end of Episode 5. And because of everyone being impatient of when he's going to come out, they have the universal clock competition of ticks versus seconds, which is another wonderful little world-building point, although Lance, quote-unquote, ruins the clock party. After he gets out of the healing pod, Lance does thank everybody for what they did for him, though he does make fun of Keith a little bit, but the entire exchange is a good moment of characterization for Lance and Keith's relationship. Another good moment of characterization we get early on is Hunk being the one to bring up what they're doing next. He's the one that calls up the mission, since what he witnessed on the Montgomery, what Zarkon has done to their home, and how long he's had these people as slaves, basically, it really opened his eyes to the mission of the Paladins. We cut to Zarkon, and there is debate over what the response to Voltron should be. Whether or not they should go with Hagar's plan of developing the magic that she is working on and finalizing the test and experiments, or doing more traditional military movement, addressing them with more ships, more fighters, which establishes the fact that there is dissension among the ranks of the Galra. Like the military generals and admirals are all dissatisfied that the witch is the one that has the Emperor's ear. Cutting back from the Galra, we get to the meat of the episode. So Team Voltron is just rocketing through space, and Hunk is asking what the plan should be, whether or not they should go in guns blazing or what. And everyone is understanding that this is his first big rescue, but not long after that, they get its stress beacon. And Hunk doesn't want to stop, but Allura insists upon it. And in this way, we meet Rollo, Naima, and Beezer, who are stranded after their ship has been damaged. So the gang agrees to help them fix their ship. It is also interesting to see how each paladin reacts to Rollo, Naima, and Beezer. So Lance is distracted by a cute girl. Paige is distracted by the robot, and you can see her messing around the entire time in the background. Keith is won over by the fact that they're freedom fighters. Shiro is won over by their information. Allura is overeager to help, so the only one being cautious and suspicious here is Hunk. But they do get good information. For instance, Rollo establishes that Zarkon's command ship is in the dead center of the Empire, and that is where he calls all the shots from, while they are on the fringes of the Empire, which explains why they haven't met any full-scale opposition. While Hunk is trying to fix the ship with Rollo, he does a good job of keeping Keith, Shiro, and Allura hooked with info, while getting Hunk out of the way to keep him from spreading his suspicion, and Naima tricks Lance into giving her a full tour of the castle and his lion. Meanwhile, the Komar experiment that Hagar talked Zarkon into doing before going after Voltron takes an entire planet's energy in seconds instead of years, meaning that the Empire can now fully focus on hunting Voltron. And the second we get back to Team Voltron, Naima tricks Lance into letting her steal his lion, chaining him to a tree and leaving him to have to contort to get his helmet and communicator within speaking range. Now, Hunk knew it was foul play because of the repairs and the nature of the damage, but everyone is annoyed because he won't shut up about it, even though he was right. Some more good characterization is Keith being the one to go into the asteroid belt they fly into to flush them out, since he's the best pilot, and he's the only one that can go in there without being hurt. And the episode ends with them successfully getting the Blue Lion back, and Rollo, Naima, and Beezer are made out to not be full villains. They are made out to be down on their luck, but they are bounty hunters that could be turned into freedom fighters. And Rollo is actually hoping that they beat the Galra, since it's a lifetime of fighting them that brought him to where he is today. In episode 7, we open with Lance asking the exact same question that Hunk asked an episode earlier, like what the plan is. Though this does lead us right into the glorious blaster noise debate, with even Shiro getting in on the action, they do immediately get down to business. For instance, they can't go in guns blazing because the Balmera is alive, and after years of abuse from the Galra, it is heavily wounded. So instead, they choose a more stealthy approach, drawing the Galra up to the surface to fight them in the air by destroying a few key installations. The team always seems to have a plan, and the roles are divided evenly and well. The sequence of actually going in and performing this plan also goes smoothly, too smoothly, though it does set up Shiro's jaw blade, but we also see the Red Lion's heat laser and the Blue Lion's ice beam. Allura and Karan find a hangar full of fighters that they need to close off, so Lance and Keith go to take care of that. Keith wants to blow it up, but Lance has a better idea. Meanwhile, Hunk is looking for where they're keeping the prisoners, to save Shay and her family. Although, on the way down there is an energy door he needs to get past, and instead of being heavily fortified, it's barely guarded. Hunk knows this is way too easy, but still goes deeper because he has to. The Galra lure them even deeper by then moving to the core and letting the Paladins find out that that is where Shay is being kept. Shiro knows this might be an ambush but has no choice if they want to save Shay. No sooner do they get all the way down there than Allura and Karan are surrounded by fighters and pinned down in the sky. Interestingly, Rax is the one that gets characterization here. He gets a nice moment after he gets Shay's message from the Balmera's core. He says that this is my fault and convinces his family to help, saying things like, our lives don't matter anymore since they got what they wanted. They have our family, how can we do nothing? Team Voltron successfully escape. They save Allura and Karan from the battlecruiser that opened fire on them, and the episode ends with another Robeast coffin landing on the planet. Episode 8 opens with the monster that was being made at the end of Episode 6 that landed at the end of Episode 7, and the team thinks they're prepared since it's just another robot like they faced in Episode 3. Boy, are they wrong. Now this monster is designed excellently. It is terrifying with how it moves, flying around with barely any movement of its limbs, and with how many eyes it has, the entire thing is unsettling, perfect for a tokusatsu-style monster. And Team Voltron goes through all of their options in this fight. Their shield doesn't work. Splitting up and evading doesn't work. Having the castle step in doesn't work. Looking for a blind spot? It doesn't have any. It's all eyes. Running away? They can't run away forever. The Balmera is dying. So the only option they are really left with is to evacuate the Balmera and distract the monster. To help with this, Allura gets into an airlock with the space equivalent of a boogie board and makes it down to the Balmeran surface. Now, the Balmeran people don't wish for any more guilt to be laid on their conscience and ask for the Paladins and Allura to get away and escape, but Allura refuses to leave anyone to die, and her words work to motivate the Balmeran people. However, just as the exodus gets underway and everyone heads to the surface, cracks and collapses from the Balmera trap the Balmerans. So Allura has to try to heal the Balmera with help from the ship's crystal, using the traditional ceremony that Karan set up a couple episodes ago. However, that was just for one crystal on an extremely small scale. What she has to do here is try to do that ceremony for an entire planet. And while she will be able to use the ship's crystal as an amplifier, the ceremony might still take more energy than she has. They win the fight and the ceremony works, though Allura collapses from exhaustion. However, the monster isn't dead. But the Balmera is still able to step in and trap the monster in crystal, repaying the debt for saving its life. The interesting part about this couple episodes is that it is the same thing for Hunk as the episodes about the ship's capture were for Pidge. Hunk and Pidge were the ones most in danger of abandoning the team, but these 6-ish episodes reaffirm for both of them the importance of the team's mission and the need for them to stay there, which is excellent writing for the pair of them. Having mini character arcs in Season 1, excellent, and that also explains why they stayed and why they're still here doing this. It shores up the story from how it could easily collapse should any one of them leave. Episode 9, it's the Haunted Castle episode. Now, at the beginning, we get foreshadowing with the crystal from Sendak, but Pidge gets called away from doing her experiments on the crystal to be present as they try to extract information from Sendak. But the process takes too long and everyone splits off, with Keith going to the training deck, Hunk going to the kitchen, Pidge going to the lab, and Lance getting pulled into Karan's repair work and chores, which is true to form for each of them, and in each location, something goes wrong. The goo machine in the kitchen goes haywire, and Pidge and Hunk have to work together to take the machine down. Lance is trapped in one of the cryopods, and isn't let out for some time. In the training deck, the training session won't end when Keith prompts it to, and instead the gladiator tries to kill him. The AI made from King Alfor's memories wakes Allura, and Lance is tricked into an airlock. Sendak speaks to Shiro when he shouldn't be able to, and the gravity goes out in the lab where Pidge was running experiments. Keith does end up saving Lance and beating the Gladiator at the same time, sending the Gladiator into space via the airlock, and the two of them and Karan are able to save Hunk and Pidge from the zero-G environment they were stuck in the lab. They meet up with Shiro after Shiro vents Sendak into space, but everyone is brought up short as they get notified that the ship is making a wormhole jump. Alfor is taking Allura home to Altea, and while the space mice are skeptical, she is not. When they get to the bridge, everyone else sees that they're heading for a star that's about to explode, but with the projection on the shield lowered around where Allura's console is, all she sees is planet Altea. Alfor's AI is entirely corrupted by the energy from Sendak's crystal, and the only way to fix everything that's been going on with the ship is to disconnect his power source, which means losing what's left of King Alfor, a sacrifice that Allura is instantly willing to make, as she asks the Paladin to go out and buy her time to disconnect his power. All of his memories are projected out to get her to stop, with the memory of him holding her as a baby bringing her up short. But the goodbye is so poignant and well written, it's a beautiful character moment for Allura. Episode 10 opens by establishing that hitting Zarkon where he lives would be a huge mistake, so instead they plan a heist. They find a hidden galactic hub in what's left of Sendak's memories, and Allura joins them on the mission, saying that she knows more of the Galra and dealing with them than any of them do, and her information and knowledge will be invaluable. But she is just plainly stubborn about joining the mission. They get into the galactic hub by a combination of the Green Line's cloaking technology and a radiation burst from the castle shorting out the sensors of the hub. They don't get much information from the hub itself, however a ship going to Central Command lands not long after, and they make the plan to infiltrate that ship to get the information they need. They, meaning Shiro and Allura, with Allura suddenly establishing that the Altean people are chameleon-like, able to shift their bodies to more closely match that of the native population, in this case making her larger, stronger, and purple. There is a moment where Shiro objects to Allura going on the mission, and instead Shiro says that I'm going with you. This time with Allura objecting, saying he'll stick out. However, while she can infiltrate the Galra, she won't be able to interface with the technology. Shiro can interface with the technology but can't infiltrate the Galra, since he would stick out like a sore thumb. Not long after they leave, Keith goes to check out what's coming out of the ship that just landed, and to find out what the Druids are doing, regardless of how Lance objects. This leaves our original trio of Lance, Pidge, and Hunk alone in the Galactic Hub control room, and their chemistry and shenaniganery are just heartwarming and completely make sense for a group that were a team as long as they were. Keith discovers the quintessence conversion with a now yellow energy from the planets being turned purple for Galra use, and he makes the plan to steal a sample of it. Meanwhile, Allura is covering for Shiro getting the information that they need from the ship bound for Central Command. And while she does that successfully, the guard comes back to see if he can get reassigned and is just in time to hear the alarm go off, so they suddenly have to escape the ship that they're on and make a run for the escape pods. Meanwhile, Keith's mission also similarly went sideways, being caught by the Druid and having to fight it off. And the Druid design is intensely creepy, with how it's holding its head, how it's moving and attacking, and the sequence sets up that each and every Druid is a big problem. The sequence also sets up that quintessence is the powerful energy of life, with the raw quintessence healing the burns that Keith had gotten on his hands, defending himself from the Druid's lightning bolts. However, the tension is ramped up as all of Team Voltron, or at least the Paladins, reconvene in the cockpit of the Green Lion without Allura, having thrown Shiro into the escape pod before it left without him. Meaning that now they had to go to the one place that they would have been fools to go to in order to save her. Like every other bad choice, they don't have an alternative. Now the team does decide to go save Allura. The mission is set up as an all or nothing, since they have enough energy to wormhole into the system, but they don't have enough energy to wormhole out without Allura. No sooner than they go in than the solar barrier is deployed, encasing the entire system of planets and the command ship in the center. They go in with Voltron guns blazing and are fairly successful for a second, but Voltron freezes under the effect of Zarkon and the Druid's magic. They are torn apart and a tractor beam starts attracting the Black Lion up to where Zarkon is. And when the Black Lion ejects Shiro because of his weak connection, Keith is able to knock the Black Lion away from Zarkon's dark magic, which just prompts Zarkon to go and fight Keith, who is in the Red Lion, saying that the Black Lion will be returned to the original Paladin, which is an excellent reveal that Zarkon was the original Black Paladin of Voltron. He was the original leader of Voltron, which explains all the knowledge he has about Voltron, all the obsession he has with Voltron, and raises the question, why was he the original Paladin? So while that fight is happening, Shiro is going through the command ship to try to get to the Black Lion, and is instead met with Hagar, having a fight with her, and Hagar and Zarkon are terrifying opponents. The witch using her magic and overpowering Shiro, while Zarkon is plain and simple too strong, able to use his Bayard to form weapons, instead of just the one that we see the other paladins able to form, and overpowering Keith, who is in one of the lions. While the two fights are happening, Hunk, Lance, and Pidge go to save Allura, though she does show that she knew not to bring the Black Lion near Zarkon. But with her being saved, they go to save Shiro. Zarkon is kicking Keith's butt enough that Keith, in a fit of bloodlust, unlocks Red's back weapon, an intense heat cannon that blows up part of the Dyson ring that is set up between the 3 gas giants in Zarkon's command system, and Zarkon compliments him and goes back to kicking his butt. Meanwhile, Allura and Hunk are able to save Shiro. In turn, Shiro is able to save Keith from being kebabbed. Everyone is able to make it back to the Castle of Lions, but they aren't able to wormhole out, the solar barrier earlier jamming their ability to generate wormholes. However, we see that someone brings down the barrier generator, despite it being off limits. Excellent foreshadowing for a group of freedom fighters. We see a knife with a very distinctive emblem on it, and we see one of the commanders that we've seen in the background of quite a few shots, who we know is named Face. And the entire gang is able to escape through a wormhole, but Hager compromises the integrity, which means that everyone is scattered at the very end of the episode. And the season ends on a massive cliffhanger, which is just built for Season 2. So the second half of Season 1 of Voltron does a little bit less of setup. It just builds more on what we saw in Part 1. We see that Hunk gets a similar character arc that Pidge got, and that the team is now completely invested and all on board. There is more world building done, with ticks and light years being established as our units of measurement, instead of miles and seconds. We see the paladins grow in power and capability and skill. The entire process is very organic. It is also set up that there are clandestine organizations standing against the rule of the Empire, and bounty hunters wandering around, freedom fighters, groups of people that haven't been conquered yet or were lucky enough to escape. Few and far between, but still there. The latter part of Season 1 sets up the ripe ground for Voltron to fight against Zarkon and his empire in a meaningful way, and the entire thing is done very well and very organically. All the characters are fairly complex, and they're not just one-dimensional ideas anymore. Most of them are very well written, even the ones we just see for an episode or two, like Shay or Rollo and Naima. Overall, Season 1 does a very good job setting up and becoming the foundation for the rest of the series, establishing a base for this complex and thought-out world to branch out from, and all these interesting characters to grow and play. And, yeah, that's about it. As always, thank you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace! Spoiler warning!